Yeah, a very good morning to you all. Yes, having a look at the city, parts of the city here in Abuja, where it's 28 degrees. It was pretty chilled, calm this morning. The kind of morning you like to see, ease your way to work, probably after your light workout. Humidity, not too bad, 69% as a matter of fact. So, yes, hopefully, it turns out to be a lovely morning, notwithstanding the construction in parts of the city here in Abuja. So, again, good morning to you all, and welcome to Sunrise Daily today.
Well, what you're seeing is the construction around Area 1. That's what it's called in Abuja. Right. There's a major construction going on very close to a very popular roundabout in Abuja known as the Area 1 roundabout. And that place is going to be getting a lot of activities this season, especially as tomorrow and next tomorrow have now been declared public holidays. There's a transport hub around that area, so certainly you will be seeing a lot of activity there. If you're visiting Abuja for the very first time, this is Area 1 along the Nnamdi Azikiwe Expressway. Good morning and welcome. I'm Maokwe Ogun Yusuf.
Certainly a very beautiful and lovely place right there, Area 1 in Abuja. And if you're thinking of, well, this is the kind of image I have of Abuja, guys. No traffic Abuja. That's the one I know. When I see a place with traffic, I'm wondering, wait a minute, what's going on here? Is that Lagos or some other part of the city of Lagos that I'm not aware of? But hey, that's what you have here. Now, in Lagos, where exactly am I going to take you this morning? Do you even have any idea where this is? Any idea? No, I'm not going to tell you yet. No, I'm not going to tell you yet. Just guess. Wild imagination. In the meantime, good morning and welcome. This is Sunrise Daily, and this is Lagos. Where is this in Lagos? I'm not going to give you any clues. Where is this in Lagos? The information is right there on your screen. Give us an idea, and of course, we'll definitely let you know. This is the same way we did last week. Don't worry, the crew in the city are also wondering exactly where is this? Where is this in Lagos? Okay, you know it on the ground, but when it's right above the sky like this, you really don't know. But I can also tell you that right now in the city of Lagos, the temperature is something in the region of 27%, and it feels like 32 degrees. 27 degrees feels like 32 degrees. Humidity is 87%. Welcome. I'm Ayo Makinde. This is Sunrise Daily. Now, guys, what's happening today?
All right, so today you're going to, several questions do abound about this ministry, blue economy. What is going on there? So I know several questions as to people are saying, look, some of these ministries just appear to be on paper. No, well, if we're doing any heavy lifting behind the scenes, people don't know. They don't have any information whatsoever.
The minister doesn't talk.
So what do you do
for a
with that
ministry
kind of
that is relatively new?
How do people invest? How do people know what's going on? How do you plan? So maybe, just maybe, today, this scenario, they say they're going to have this stakeholders workshop, and they say they want to define priority issues for development of the national blue economy strategy for the country. So we'll wait to see what happens thereafter, and many hopes. It's not just, hoping it's not a one-off. Look, they have to have concrete plans. If the ministry was created, you thought that there was a plan. And if there's a plan, almost a year after, nothing coming through. But there has to be a lot more, because it's not just about, there's several value chains in that area. There's several things, but... That's what
we've been told. The blue economy was launched with a lot of fanfare. When the president announced it, people said, oh, wow, good thinking. Yes, this is what we've been waiting for all along. But this is how many months? As you rightly said, it's almost a year. And I think the president has that, what's the name of that commission that he has? Which is headed by Ms. Hadiza Usman. which we should be hearing from anytime soon.
That's the Central Coordination Delivery Units. I think they call it CDCU. And incidentally, too, they're having what they call the Go Live events for the Citizens Delivery Tracker today.
Interesting. So that's certainly something we should keep tabs on, because we know that is supposed to also keep tabs on the deliverables of the ministers. Well, that's not all that is happening today. There's also some activity around the Nigeria Labour Congress. And guess what they're doing? They're inviting Labour Party stakeholders to a meeting. We know that so much has been happening in the Labour Party. There's been quite a bit of disagreement here and there from the NLC, which wants to see the chairman of Labour Party leave. We also know that Labour Party, under the leadership of its current chairman, who is embattled, I dare say, has been conducted a convention which hasn't exactly been acceptable to all. So the Nigeria Labour Congress is holding a political commission and inviting Labour Party's stakeholders to a meeting, which is also happening today. Will they be able to resolve the issues? Will he be able to bring all parties to the table, from the Labour Party and the Nigeria Labour Congress, which continues to claim ownership of the Labour Party, to the annoyance of those within the Labour Party?
Oh, dear.
Je ne sais pas. But I think it will be worth watching out for today. Ayo.
I don't even know why that should be an issue. Just go to the INEC office. You'll know who the owner is. But hey. But today we'll be talking about business as well, and we'll be exploring alternatives for food security. That will be on Business Morning on Sunrise Daily at 10 o'clock. So now let's switch to the papers.
We start off with the Guardian newspaper this morning, and the theme here today has got to do with the road to 500 billion naira recapitalization. Bank owners lobby, seek adjustment in share capital composition. That's the big lead on the front page of the Guardian here today. And then, well, yes, this matter is still hugging the headlines, and why not? Electricity tariff hike. FCCPC, others pressure FG to revert decision. Well, you know that this is still generated a lot of reaction. Many who will feel the pinch and the way and manner with which government went about it. Of course, you can have your way, have your say, possibly. Now, FCCPC want to have their way, and who knows what becomes of that Labour stance on rejecting this way and manner they're going about it will be. So that is the Guardian and their lead story. Electricity tariff, Abuja Inquirer focuses on that one. Abuja tops band A users nationwide. Asokoro, Garki lead. FCCPC backs NERC 200 million naira fine on AEDC. So electricity stories right there as well this morning. Have a look at Nigerian Tribune, focusing on the economy. Despite FG's assurance of economy picking up, food prices still high. Now, what do we do with that? Haven't seen this one here today. So it's their own big lead. But then you also see at the bottom strip right here, Eid al-Fitr Sultan direct Muslims to look for new moon today. So I guess they'll also be keeping tabs on that one. And then talking about which, Vanguard talks about petrol. Oil marketers propose 550 naira per litre price to Dangote. Well, yes, he's hitting the markets with his product. He had put up the price publicly. So anyone who had any shady mindset, I guess they will have to think again. But this is the lead story here, and lots of riders associated with that one as well. And then you also do have some scenario about the economy. Daily Independence version, experts worried over Naira recovery, say it's artificial cosmetic. Firms still face high costs of production following dollar shortage. So you may check the story and see if these experts are proffering solutions. I mean, everybody knows what the challenge is, but solution is what I think lots of people want to focus on here this morning. Have a look at Business Day. Cardoso needs help as monetary policy nears wit's end. That is the categorical statement from Business Day, well, probably categorical lead story, if you will, on the front page of Business Day this morning. Okay, now having looked at some of the dailies who are focusing on the economy-related matters, Daily Trust has a different perspective entirely on a different matter as well. Nigerians in UAE stranded over work permit visa ban. So is this still a thing? You'd have thought that this was at some point addressed, but it's back here on the front page, so you can have a look. Look at Daily Times. Anti-party activities. PDP in dilemma over Wike others. This upcoming NERC is a make or mar meeting for PDP. Shegun showed me, so I guess many will see. And then you move on to Nigerian News Direct, also political party matter. LP leadership crisis. NLC convenes stakeholders meeting today. Vows to displace Abure. So I guess it doesn't just rain, but it pours now. So labor. So they got other concerns now, political ones at that. This Nigeria is next. Military airstrikes kill dozens of terrorists in Katsina, Borno. Nigerians call for stiffer sanctions against bandits. FCT police raid criminal hideouts, arrest 85 suspects. So that is this Nigeria's version of things this morning. And then the Nigerian Observer, new national ID to boost microloans, consumer credit, financial inclusion. So that is that of the Observer. Okay, so some of the issues that stick out on the front page of Vanguard newspaper. Yes, I know there are several big headlines, but the NPAN, Guild of Editors, Union of Journalists, Bond, CSOs, others seek probe of journalist detention on the front page of Vanguard. That sticks out. So many are wondering, what is going on? Why is it that till date, the editor of First News newspaper, Mr. Segun Olatunji, is still under detention?
He's been released, actually.
Okay, he's been released, but now...
What they want...
No, what they're asking now is that what they are probing, we want the probe of his detention.
Indeed.
Because, look, he was held way beyond 24 hours.
He was.
The stipulated time. He was not... Has he been charged to court?
He was held improperly, Chamberlain. He was held improperly. By the Defense Intelligence Agency. I mean, it was not even it was military authorities. It wasn't by civil authorities, which smacks of the days of military dictatorship, which we thought we had since left behind. It took every effort from MPAN, from Guild of Editors, to be able to get his whereabouts, because there was initial denial from military authorities. Abducted. He was abducted, he was. And so it took the intervention of the Minister of Information to be able to confirm that he was actually in the custody of military authorities. If that is the case, what the newspaper bodies are asking for, media bodies are asking for, is a probe into the people who carried out that abduction. They want to know those that are responsible for it. We are under a democratic dispensation, and it should reflect in every single way, in terms of journalists should be free to carry out their jobs. If you have any objection, then we must go about it along the path of democracy. And besides, I mean, this happened partly probably because last time or last administration, some of these things happened. And, many may just have this impression that, they can abduct people who are going about their constitutional duties. Indeed. Because the law stipulates that, look, if anyone feels hard done by anything, the courts are there. That's why the courts are there, so that people don't constitute themselves into wherever they think they are. There is a rule of law, and it should be adhered to. We're not in a jungle. So that's why there are laws that we should stick by. And no one should be above the law. No one is above the law. And so these kind of things, so if
they were not carrying out their lawful duties. It's a different matter entirely. But in this case, there are processes to seek redress for these kinds of matters. And so these issues do not go unaddressed.
I wonder if the media, will one day go on strike to, actually show the seriousness of some of the demands that they
The day is coming.
Yeah, because it's also here on the front page of This Nigeria. It's taken out here. Media bodies, CSOs demand investigation into Olatunji's detention, take prosecution of perpetrators. So that's also right there. But one story that seems to be giving me a bit of a palpitation. Palpitation, I'm sure for some people too, is this one on the front page of This Nigeria, right beside the nameplate. The Nigeria's forex reserves suffer $1.02 billion decline in 18 days. That information is said to be coming from the CBN itself. The question is, what did they use it for? Is that what has been popping up the Naira this last couple of days? Or, because people have been asking, what exactly has been the source of the confidence that investors were having in the Naira? Because they wanted to be sure, that it's long-term. But if we're doing it at the expense of our very fragile forex reserves, is that a wise...
fragile.
Yeah, it's a fragile one. Is that a very wise decision? The story is on page 20 of the paper. You might want to take another look at that particular story.
CBN will have a headache trying to sort this out. But anyway, I think they know what they're into.
They put
already.
the news out there. I mean, nobody forced it out of them.
I mean, the fragile bits.
Ayo.
Well, it's very, very, interesting that you bring that up, Malkwe. And for that particular information to be coming from the CBN, well, I guess they have their heads screwed right. Particularly in the light of what you have as lead story of the Nigerian Observer this morning. And it's like many people seeing this or hearing about this information will say, okay, here we go again. Not forgetting in a hurry what many people experienced in the 2021, 2022, or thereabouts, where we were compelled to go to NIMC offices to go and register for the national identity number. And now we are hearing that a new national ID will boost microloans, consumer credit, financial inclusion. And so I would advise that the federal government or whoever is in authority, whoever needs to get this done, will communicate well enough with the people and give a reasonable human or humane timeline. So people are not put under pressure the way we were put under pressure the last time, trying to get numbers, national identity numbers and all of that. I dare say that there are those who probably don't have those numbers yet, and there are those who have probably not even linked their numbers to their names, even as at now. And now we have to battle with this one again. Whoever is initiating this information, whether it's the Ministry of Interior or the Ministry of Digital Economy, federal ministries, both of them, let there be sufficient communication with the people. And not just information. Let there be some kind of public forum where people can ask questions and we educate people, we respond to the issues that people will raise. Get on television, get on radio, get on the social media and let people understand, because we all know that once it has the appendage of government, there is that tinge of distrust, of doubt in the minds of people. To boost trust, government must communicate. That's my take on the front page of that, on that story on the front page of the Nigerian Observer.
All right, so there you go. That is a look at some of the dailies here this morning. But we will be back in a moment, so don't go away.
With Glovo, you order anything you want, and when you receive it, you celebrate with your whole body. Because when that tasty grilled chicken is here, the weekend starts. The ingredients for your favorite recipe, just in time. And when the cake arrives, the party is on. Because receiving anything on Glovo deserves a dance. Download the app, order anything you want, and track it minute by minute until it arrives. Glovo, order anything, we deliver in minutes.
Senior executives face local macroeconomic turbulence and global geopolitical upheavals. Don't worry, Texam UK got your back. A transformative journey with Texam Strategies for Sustainable Organizational Success Program, April 24 to 25, 2024, in Lagos will position you and your organization for these challenges. Our interactive sessions, games, assessment, and peer-to-peer learning are unique with a great faculty led by John Peters, former chair, Association of MBAs and ex-prisoner of war, delivering actionable insights for you to navigate uncertainties and thrive. Pay 3,155,250 Naira by March 15th for your spot and enrich your leadership skills in resilience, innovation, and sustainable growth. Apply now via +44 7425 883 791 or exec@texam.co.uk. It's a strategic opportunity to win. Texam, insights that inspire, actions that change the world.
With Glovo, you order anything you want, and when you receive it, you celebrate it with your whole body. Because when that tasty grilled chicken is here, the weekend starts. The ingredients for your favorite recipe just in time. And when the cake arrives, the party is on. Because receiving anything on Glovo deserves a dance. Download the app, order anything you want, and track it minute by minute until it arrives. Glovo, order anything, we deliver in minutes.
Thank you very much. You may be seated, please.
This is the fourth ministerial briefing organized by the Ministry of Information. This time, it is a turn of the Ministry of Power.
We have the DG, Federal Radio Corporation of Nigeria.
The briefing is aimed at giving updates to Nigerians on the current happenings in different sectors of the country.
To ensure that we transform.
The briefing by the Minister of Power, Mr. Adebayo Adelabu, wouldn't have come at a better time, following the uproar on the recent electricity tariff hike. The organizer and Minister of Information and National Orientation, Mohammed Idris, explains that misconceptions and concerns around the tariff review are understandable and pleaded with Nigerians to be patient with the administration.
But what I will tell you is that please let us have an open mind to hear from the Honorable Minister himself. What is it that he has to say about this? If there are clarifications, of course, he has come with the Executive Vice Chairman, like I said earlier, of the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission to answer some technical questions if there are.
The Minister of Power gives reasons why subsidy was partially removed from the power sector. He insists customers on the other bands, aside Band A, will continue to enjoy government subsidy.
We want the consumers to have value for their money. That is the essence of this. And it is better that we start this journey now so that we can conclude it on time. Because the journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step in the right direction. This one is in that direction, and we want you to display the understanding that we deserve.
In the meantime, the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission, NERC, is wielding the big stick over the Abuja Electricity Distribution PLC, AEDC, to the tune of 200 million naira for tariff violations.
The fine, of course, when it is paid, is going to the Rural Electrification Fund in line with the provision of the Act. It doesn't belong to the Commission, and there is a wisdom in that, so that we don't turn ourselves to revenue-generating agents because we don't want to improve our own personal liquidity.
For many Nigerians, the hike in electricity tariff may have come to stay. They, however, expect the government to match actions with promises made, as this would douse the tension and anxiety already created by the hike.
Okay, yes, indeed. So that is still the thing. Of course, it will be for a while because, I mean, if I can only use that if at the moment, if the tariff stays, which many think is come to stay, because you know you have to pay for as long as possible, maybe until March of 2025, who knows? So it will be a big issue. So we've got two gentlemen joining us at this point to weigh in on this subject matter. We've got Dr. Akeredolu Oni. He is an energy law and policy professional. He joins us virtually And then we also have Dafe Akpenaye, who is the Commissioner, Legal, Licensing and Compliance of NERC here in the studios. Good morning. Thank you for coming.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
I know you know that when this came out, many, of course, were first not happy at all with that announcement because they've got to pay a lot more. And then there were issues about how the NERC went about it. Some parts of the NERC's argument didn't quite sit with several people. And the story goes. But now, at the moment, this decision, according to the NERC, is come to stay. So yes, notwithstanding the pressers that the NERC has, there's still lots of reaction about all of this now. So what is the latest thinking for the Commission in terms of how many still don't buy the arguments of, well, the points, if I could use that word, that the NERC has put out there?
Okay, it's not about, we're not trying to sell points. The Commission is designed to carry out a statutory responsibility in that as a regulator, we see this sector, we have a holistic view of the sector end to end. And we need to cater for all the players. And the players go from most important being the customer and the producers of that product. So the Commission stands in the middle to ensure that the product the customers want can get to them. We've been having this discussion about cost-reflective tariff for a very long time. And it's become a very sensitive issue. And when you look at the power sector, it's a unique industry in the sense that, first of all, you're operating end-to-end with a lot of factors that are not within your control. You have gas producers, you have generators, you have a transmission company, you have discos, and you have consumers. And this product cannot be stored. So the minute it's generated at one end, it gets to the customers at the other end. And there's a significant cost towards making this product available. I would dare say Nigeria, from a demographic standpoint, as we sit today, as from the standpoint of potentiality, we have the potential for being the largest untapped power market in Africa and perhaps the world. Because when you look at our demographics, in about 20, 30 years' time, in our lifetime, Nigeria is going to become the third most populous country in the world. And you look at the demographics, you're going to have a burgeoning, most of that is going to be young people, right, under 30. Power is critical to determining the kind of country we'll be when we become the third most populous country in the world. And there's a cost to bringing 1 kilowatt of power onto the grid.
But at the moment,
right?
they are not the ones who are directly affected by this. The NERC says it's band A.
It gets back to the question you asked me. A few years ago, you would recall that tariff reviews used to be blanket across board, whereby on the basis of the macroeconomic variables at a certain point in time, we would do the reviews and it applied to all customers equally. And then we were using an old scheme, R1 and C2, things like that. And we had consultations. And Nigerians said, look, we will pay for power when we get it. We're only going to pay for power when it is there. That created a need to come up with the service-based tariff, introduce a service-based tariff whereby there was a customer segmentation based on investments that had been made. So the service-based tariff regime isn't discriminatory, but it's a regime that looks at, okay, in this part of town, because investments have been made, you have access to better service. In this part of town that requires more investments, they do not get as much service as the side where investment needs to be done. How do you get both sides to enjoy the same amount of service? That comes with more investments. And the only way you're going to allow these investments to be made is by ensuring that if I come in and I do the work that is required, I can make my money back. Because it's not a charity, right? So, and the investment has a cost. So anyone who's going to make that investment will say, okay, how am I going to get a return?
Is there data? Is this data you refer to, the consultation, how you came about Band A, is it available to the public?
Of course. It's
how you
everything.
Choose who is in Band A,
no, we don't choose who's in Band A and Band B. I think we need to be careful.
How did you arrive at those who are in Band A,
we need to be careful.
Band C,
we need to be careful with our words. We didn't put people in bands.
Yeah, so how did you arrive at that?
So we bands were done based on service levels, right? So telecoms. When telecoms was introduced in 2001, initial investments were made and rollout based on a rollout plan. The first places you had was Lagos, Port Harcourt, Abuja, then Kano, based on where they could readily roll out those investments. They didn't come to my village in Abraka until later down the line.
Everybody still pays
on
the
the
same
basis, I beg your pardon?
Everybody still pays the same thing with telecoms, wherever they are,
no.
whatever service
so
you get.
with telecoms, okay, even with power, right? Regardless of the banding of customers haven't always paid the same thing because you have customers that use power for different purposes.
Maybe that's a distraction.
Right?
I just wanted to find out, how the NERC came up with that band, because, we're trying to access those data.
It's a service band, right? So we looked at, on the basis of investments that we made, there are certain parts that utilities are able to provide 20 to 24 hours of supply on a daily basis, right? And there are certain parts that investments haven't been made that is basically no supply.
All right, Dr. Akeredolu Oni is also on the program. Good morning, Dr. Oni, and thank you for joining us on the program. Yes, you also have heard this announcement, like everybody else. In terms of what the NERC's perspective is, what is yours?
Okay, I think it's a good idea, generally speaking, but the devil is in the detail. In the details, there are a number of gray areas. For example, there was a publication by NERC stating that if they cannot meet that service level of 20 hours for 7 days consecutively, then it will then become a Band B. It's feeder based, right? And Dafe can correct me if it's wrong, if that's wrong. It's feeder based. So if it then means that there's an incentive for the disco, if that publication, if my understanding is correct, that if they don't meet the 7 service levels for 7 days, that's 20 hours for 7 days, then they'll be degraded to Band B. That means a disco just needs to meet that once in 7 days. That's an area that is gray for me. Another area that is gray for me is that there are feeders that maybe do 20 hours, but they have local transformer issues. I've heard people say, I share transformers with people on feeder A, but I'm really Band C, or guys that are Band A, but I share transformers and I get 5 hours, but yeah, the feeder can do 20 hours. I haven't seen sufficient clarity around those issues. And I've also had conversations with a few people who live abroad. And some have argued that what they pay is half of that 225 when you convert it to Naira. Those are gray areas I think they need to deal with. But in terms of the idea, the concept does make sense. I understand that subsidies increased by 2,900% to about 240 billion per month from 8 billion. Maybe government can't afford it. Maybe we really should pay for the quality of service we get. But those areas that appear gray need to be explained. And I think NERC needs to do more publicity so that people truly understand what the issues are and there aren't assumptions. Those are my initial thoughts.
So when you say service-based,
yes,
we also have people who have called in saying, look, for areas where they thought that because they fell into over 20 hours supply, for 3 days now, there's been no supply in that area whatsoever. So for those kind of people now, since it's service-based, what band will they still be on? Okay, good.
So a lot of thought went into releasing the order, into the order itself. And we've learned from the lessons of the past, whereby before the order was issued, we had to confirm the performance of the feeders. And we did that over a sustained period of time. And we confirmed at that point that only 481 feeders in the country could provide a Band A service.
481 feeders?
Yes, could provide a Band A service.
Out of how many?
I think over 3,000 or so could provide a Band A service. So there was a degrading of and reduction of the number of Band A feeders in the country. And the order now goes on to say that where a customer who is a Band A customer doesn't get Band A supply for 48 hours, the utility has a responsibility to explain, and pretty much going to what Dr. Oni was saying, oh, we have a local problem, and we have a team who's working on resolving that problem. If that problem isn't able to be resolved in 7 days, and you've gone on for 7 days without enjoying a Band A service, you will be downgraded to the band of service that the DISCO could provide. So if they could only provide a Band C service for that period, you don't just downgrade next to B, you downgrade to the actual service that you enjoyed. And to address that, we now said, okay, because we've looked at, okay, what would the issues be, right? There are local issues, there are communication issues. So DISCOs now have a mandate to ensure that you have on-the-ground resolution teams, that when a complaint is made, when that call is made to a customer, they're coming to your area to fix that transformer, to replace a fuse, to do the work that needs to be done to resolve that issue, right? Because the customer is paying, we're pretty much going by, you're paying for cost, and if I'm paying for cost, right, there are certain benefits that should come, and I should hold you accountable across the value chain. So with that in mind, right, there's a communication element to say, okay, this is why you've not gotten service, right? Other communication element is they are mandated on a weekly basis to do a publication of the actual performance of the feeders. And before coming, whilst I was in waiting room,
where are they publishing it? In the papers?
Papers and the website, right? Whereby Kaduna Disco published that these are Band A feeders, right? We did 24 on this, 20 hours on this, 18 hours on that. And
are they verifiable?
Yes, they're verifiable.
That you can forge?
No. It's verifiable. So we have at the Commission what's called a situation room, whereby we are monitoring the feeders on a daily basis along with the DISCOs. So we know the amount, what's getting into those feeders at the back end. So we want that transparency and to hold them accountable for that. And what it actually does...
Why do they have to wait for 7 days?
To do what?
You said if you wait for 7 days and you don't get the supply, then...
No. It's 7 days for a downgrade, right? It's 24 hours. Within 24 hours, they must notify you that you have a local problem, right? This is what we're doing to resolve the problem. Now, there are certain issues that can be resolved quickly, right? Sometimes, if it's an issue that requires then replacing the transformer, right? It takes time for a transformer to be taken out. You bring a new transformer in, the oil needs to soak and things like that. But the customer should be aware why we have this problem. And if you're unable to resolve it in 7 days, you have to downgrade that customer because you can no longer, you committed to providing a Band A service, you can no longer provide a Band A service in this jurisdiction, so the customer shouldn't be made to pay a Band A tariff any longer in that area.
Mm-hmm. I'm just wondering how that is going to work, because as I'm sure, as you've rightly hit the nail on the head, there are many, many issues. You've narrowed them down to 2. One of them is communication. Yes. And I think underneath communication is trust.
Yes.
Trust and sincerity. Yes. A lot of people do not trust that their DISCOs can provide the service that they need when they need it. and also be trusted to communicate promptly. I think that's been a major problem. Whenever it is there's an outage, people are usually wondering, they're left to wonder, you know, until maybe somebody decides to walk to the distribution office. In Abuja, it's AEDC. Yes. But right now, as you said if there's a situation and maybe within 24 hours service is not provided, the communication is not done, or that it's going to take longer, or it takes longer, you know, they will be downgraded. The question is, how does that happen? Because the tariff has already been, another tariff, the units have already been purchased at a certain value. So how do you then downgrade that to Band B, for instance?
Okay, so there are two elements here. The first is, one, which you rightly said, issue of communication, right? One, the customer should know what's going on. The utility should know that I'm under an obligation to provide this service and I have not provided it, right? Third element now is consequence management, right? Before, under the Electric Power Sector Reform Act, there were limitations on consequence management. But under the Electricity Act, that's been taken away because the Commission now has the full powers under the law to sanction that there's a regulatory requirement for you to do this. You have this obligation to the customer. It's been proven that you haven't met this obligation, and certain consequences will follow. And we saw that only last week with AEDC.
Yes, but the sanction was to AEDC. I mean, who's going to be paying 200 million naira to who? Is it NERC or to the federal government?
Not to NERC. So under the Electricity Act, all fines imposed by the Commission go into the Rural Electrification Fund that is used for rural electrification projects by REA.
So it goes into the Rural Electrification Fund, but it has no benefit to the consumer.
So, yes, no. So there are two things, right? Not the benefit to the consumer is that there's a sanction on deterrence to the operator.
I don't want sanction, doctor. I want my money back.
I want my money back.
I don't want
That's
sanction.
what a lot of people want. If you say that they're being downgraded to Band B, for instance, maybe you live in an estate, you haven't had... And Band B, I think they're mandated to provide at least 18 hours. Isn't that correct?
No, so Band B is from, 16 to 20.
16 to 20. So they're mandated to provide, which is not too bad. I mean, from 20 hours.
Yes,
so if they're being downgraded, the money certainly is different because Band A customers now are being charged ×3.
So the same principle applies, that what you vended, so if it happened in a short window, right, what you vended, so like Wichita was using the Abuja example, right, whereby you had Band B, Band C, and other bands of customers who went to vend, let's say, 10,000, 20,000 naira, and you assessed a Band A rate for them. With that downgrade, you had an obligation to refund the tokens. And Abuja has set up a portal where you can do that. So with the enforcement mechanism now, where the customer cannot get that service and you downgrade, and the person still has units that he hasn't used, and you look at the timing, there's an opportunity to say, okay, when at this point in time I vended, right? I vended 50,000 last week. You couldn't provide this service. Yes, there's an obligation on the utility to say, okay, because he's a Band B customer, right, or a Band C customer, and these are the value of tokens he would have gotten, right? Within that window, the balance of what has been consumed, he gets that back in tokens for the services enjoying at the point in time.
Are you going to be mandating the distribution companies to have a certain level of communication that there must be? For instance, we know now that the CBN, which regulates the banks, you know, they also keep tabs on how it is that they attend to customers. If you have any complaints and it's not being handled, you can escalate it.
Yeah.
But the banks, we also know, have also improved greatly in terms of how I don't have to leave my house, for instance, as a consumer of banking services to get whatever it is I want to attended to. But it's not exactly the same thing with distribution companies. Distribution companies have not exactly made it very easy to be communicated with. Are these some of the things that NERC is going to be mandating them to do, given the service level or the tariff increment, and also this, we're supposed to be on a service level agreement. This is supposed to be part of service, isn't it? Is this something that NERC is going to be mandating the distribution companies?
Of course. So there's a communication element in the mandate that has been issued to the utilities. In that, one, you must tell the customers, the customers know what is going on, right? And for a while, they've been mandated to have what they call customer care centers, whereby you can go and lodge complaints and they address the complaints. But for greater transparency on monitoring the current framework we are now, right? Not only are you meant to treat the customer better, you're also meant to self-report and have transparency whereby you publish that this is what we have done on these feeders, right? And where you've not done that, you're held accountable.
We're starting with giving tabs. I want to ask Dr. Ayotunde, if you are, do you feel a certain level of comfort with the explanation that NERC has given so far in terms of what will happen if, you know, the terms and conditions of the service level agreements are not met?
Yeah, I do have some comfort, but I still think there are practical challenges. All a disco needs to do is to manage their network. Every 7 days you have issues. You end up not having 20 hours for more than 2 days. Next month, for those days, you have challenges again. They can just move you along with Dafe's explanation. Communication, all of that, it needs to take 7 days before they downgrade it. That means by day 5, they resolve it. You don't have light for 5 days. Day 6, they resolve it. Next week, you have another issue. Day 4, they resolve it. That means it doesn't seem to really solve the problem. I think it's a brilliant idea. I think NERC has been doing excellently well, to be honest, and I'm one of those who praise their efforts. But I think that those practical issues still exist. And that of transformers, I'm on the same feeder that is, and remember, unless Dafe wants to say it's not the case, it's feeder-based. It's not local. It's feeder-based. So if my transformer is almost always problematic and I end up having only 5 hours, but if that gives me 20 hours, I do not still have sufficient comfort that I will be enjoying Band A services, although I am paying Band A. So I think even with his explanation, that practical challenge remains because it says it has to take 7 days of not getting 20 hours before you're downgraded. So they do it after 6 days, next month again, or the next week, 4 days, there's a problem. They do it on the 5th day. They've not met this. They've not failed on the 7th day.
Okay, let me take that to him. Let me take that to him, which is a problem that many places experience. And it's a problem that could rear its head in the rainy season. We know how storms, usually come and, places are out, transformers are down. So what happens where there's a local problem, where the feeder is providing the service, but the local transformers are not transmitting that? What happens?
Okay, so first, before I go to the question, I must address what Dr. Oni said about a deliberate gaming of the system, right? I'm a customer of 2 discos, Lagos and in Abuja. In Abuja, I've been a Band A customer for 7 years because the level of supply has been Band A supply. I have a lot of people I discuss with who, at the time I took on this job, they were not Band A customers. But they've told me that, Daffy, service has improved. I'm now a Band A customer. I've been a Band A customer for X number of years or this period. So on the basis of empirical evidence and precedents, there's no incentive to start gaming and chopping, because the service has been there, right? And how you enjoy the service is on the basis of the investment. Electrons flow and they follow the path of least resistance. So no one is going to say, okay, let us make this place Band A now and not make it Band B, make it Band B later after the customers have paid us, when there's a consequence management to that effect. On the issue of local issues? Yes, which is why we've said that there's a communication element to this, right? And the discos need to be responsive in addressing local issues. They need to have their teams being dispatched, those people with the haylocks and the ladders, going out to the streets to resolve the local issues customers face. Then you now have issues that we could call acts of God on the basis of, in Abuja, when it starts raining and those storms start, power has to go out, right? And trees would fall, take out some power lines, and those are circumstances that you would see, you would call an act of God, right? That the utility at that point in time cannot provide the service because of circumstances beyond its control. Now, what's going to be the expectation? First of all, comes back to you have a responsibility to let the customers know that, one, this Dawaki feeder, right? A tree fell across the road, taking out the conductors and X number of substations, right? It is going to take us X period of time to fix the problem, right? In that window, the customers get downgraded to an appropriate band if you cannot resolve the problem within that window, right? But when you're able to now get to a level whereby you can provide adequate supply, the customers pay at the appropriate rate.
You know, in spite of all of this, bottom line for the customer, if you don't pay, you don't get service. But now listen to all of this, it just appears as though there are several reasons why a disco will tell you why you can't get supply, even though you're paying for band A. Because this morning I got calls from people who said, look, we're supposed to be in this so-called band A. For 3 consecutive days, they vended no supply whatsoever. So these things happen. They have already paid. So when you say, yes, we'll pay if we have service, these things don't appear as though, you know, because for them, they don't have supply, period. But let's not allow ask his own questions. So he's got questions for both of you as well. Okay. Go ahead, please.
Well, thank you, Chamberlain. Quite a number of things have been said, but let me begin with Dr. Joe. Do you think, I mean, even though Mr. Akeredolu has made some explanation earlier, do you think we have a sufficient way of measuring supply? Do you think the NRC has a reliable system of measuring supply? Because if they do, I would expect that it shouldn't even last up to 24 hours before they will notify a particular disco that, guy, you've not supplied what you promised that you're going to supply. So taking up to 6 days and then 7 days and all might be an issue. Do you think we have a system of monitoring electricity supply real time? Dr. Ojo.
Answer that question. I think to an extent, I understand that they've invested in some technology that can help them monitor, but I'm not sure that it's 100% done now, and well, I'm not sure.
I apologize, Dr. Joe. I can't hear you, but I'm pretty sure it's something that maybe from your side or from our side, I don't know. But let me come back to you, Mr. Akeredolu, while we're dealing with that one. One of the issues that a number of people would want to take you up on is whether or not, first of all, how does your agency, your commission respond to the opinion of the FCCPC, which is saying that discos repeatedly fail to meet the minimum power supply hours for respective tariff bands, and their failure over time to compensate customers for service downtime and have made consumer grievances worse. So they are saying that unless electricity customers are metered by discos, it'll be difficult to implement this new tariff hike. What's your take on that one, Mr. Akeredolu?
Okay, yes. Revenue assurance is a critical element for the sector, and it's important that all customers should be metered. But we find ourselves in a situation whereby we have a metering gap, and there's work being done to close out the metering gap. What the Commission has done, and what we've said as we move towards this new cost-reflective tariff, is because we appreciate the fact that a certain customer band has been mandated to pay the actual cost-reflective tariff. We've prioritized the metering of those customers in that band, that all customers in that band should be metered. So about 70% of the customer population in band A now are metered, 30% remain unmetered. And we've issued directive to the discos that you must work out closing that metering gap. So we do not have unmetered band A customers. So work is being done. So you must prioritize the metering of band A customers. And the metering of other customers as well. Work is being done to ensure that we close out the metering gap. These are things that it costs a lot of money. And the sector has been bleeding because we've not been able to charge a cost-reflective tariff across board. And that has stalled investments coming into the sector. A lot of the investments we see, which a lot tend to be Dr. Oni's clients, are people who are coming to provide off-grid solutions to manufacturers, saying that, okay, I know that if I put in place an off-grid solution in this place, right, I can charge the cost and get paid. And I'm dealing with this person on a willing buyer, willing seller basis. So a lot of the manufacturing endeavors are off the grid as we speak today. And if you look at the plants in Alausa, most of the bottlers have installed capacity with built-in redundancy to power the whole of Alausa. You understand? So we need to do the work that is required to ensure we bring confidence back into the sector. And the only way that can be done is ensuring an investor that, one, I'm an investor-friendly climate, and two, there's an opportunity to recoup my investment when it is made.
When I got people asking, the Commission has said that I think AEDC was supposed to refund some customers some money. What's going on with that?
No, we said, when the order was issued, the tariff banding on the vending platform was only supposed to apply to band A customers. AEDC went ahead and applied it across bands A to E in contravention of the order. So what the Commission has said is, for bands B to E customers that vended,
B to E,
yeah, that vended, you must refund the tokens that they would have gotten at the existing rate, which is the old rate for those customer bands.
They must refund it? The
tokens, yes.
Have they been refunded?
They are refunding it now, and if you check, there's a platform, they set up a platform whereby you put in your meter number, you get to see what band you fall into, and the balance of tokens that you are entitled to receive on the platform. So AEDC has complied with that.
Okay, Mr. Oni, just give us your closing thoughts. Apologies on that mix-up there, but you were talking about the capacity of the NERC. So could you go ahead and conclude on that one just before we wrap up?
I think the NERC is doing generally a brilliant job, particularly when it comes to regulations. My challenge has always been implementation. And I always say the devil is in the detail. I understand and his question was around being able to track. I understand that NERC has invested in some technology that can do that, but that technology is not available to the public. I don't know if that can provide some clarity on that. So generally speaking, I think it's some of these policies are the right policies. Maybe they're coming in large numbers, so there'll be some pushback, and of course the effect may initially be adverse because of course macroeconomic factors have changed. Consumer price index, gas pricing, all of those, even USD, the exchange rate, all of those have changed. So I do not think it's necessarily a bad policy. I think it's actually a brilliant policy, and I think some thought has been put to it. But those gray areas, NERC still does need to do much more around those. And then I think I pay much more. Dafe knows I lived abroad for a short while a few years ago, and it looks like I'm paying double or almost triple what I was paying when I lived abroad. That's another thing. Should it be more expensive than what we have in the US, what we have in Canada?
All right, Dr.
That's something else we need to deal with. Thank you.
So there you go. Yeah, to say they're doing an excellent job. So how is that excellent if you're paying ×3 of the job and you're not getting Several people think that, look, if they pay for service and they don't get it, they cannot say it's a good job that is being done, because there's no excuse for you not to pay. In some areas,
they are doing well.
You get. If you don't pay, you don't get a service charter. So to a lot of people, that's the way it's coming across. But that's how much time.
I wish we could get a quick response for that. Is there a reason why we're paying so much more?
Okay, so first of all, I do not agree that we're paying much more. Our power remains one of the cheapest on the African continent. You can check that. That is empirical data that is available. The rates in Nigeria are cheaper than in almost any other African country. And Ayo alluded to his lived abroad. I know Ayo lived in Canada. Canada has a lot of hydro resources. Hydro is generally cheaper. Then also, we must address this.
It's 10 o'clock, pardon me. Sorry,
okay.
We need to move on. We have another segment coming up. Apologies on that one.
No problem.
So we have to thank both of you for coming on. Dr. Akeredolu is an energy law and policy professional. We also have Dafi Akpene, who is a commissioner, legal compliance for NERC. Thank you both for coming on this morning. It's an ongoing matter, of course, so we can always go back to this matter. So, but now, let's go ahead to Lagos, where Inijoma is standing by.
That's right, Chamberlain. It is an ongoing matter, the matter of electricity supply and pricing. And, now the Minister of Power, Mr. Adelabu, is under some sort of fire, for his comments on Nigerians and how they are managing or not electricity supply. And a lot of people are asking for his head. Well, he's also said something that perhaps, I'm just seeing this report and I thought to share it, that electricity transformers and substations meant for the $2.3 billion Siemens power project, yes, that Siemens power project that we've been talking about has arrived in the country, according to the minister. And he said he said this in a statement yesterday, and tries to tell us that perhaps better days are ahead, because we're not just going to pay more for electricity. We could also have more supply, and then we'll be able to manage the supply and the usage even better. But let's start off as we normally do on Business Morning. This morning from the global space, oil prices we see slid more than $1 on Monday, with Brent falling below $90 as Middle East tensions eased after Israel withdrew more soldiers from southern Gaza and committed to fresh talks on a potential ceasefire in the 6-month conflict. And now we look at the numbers right there. A lot of things tightening right there. We see a drop of more than 1%. It's not a normal thing you would see. So you want to know the factors driving it. 1.6% down, that's for Brent, to $89.60. 9 cents, and this I know is still quite high, especially for a country like Nigeria. We have our own target about $77. So these should be good times for the country. We should be making extra revenue at this time. WTI for the United States is also down 1.6% at $85.54 a barrel. Now let's look at the factors. Obviously, Israel and Hamas is top on that. They sent teams to Egypt for fresh talks on a potential ceasefire ahead of the Eid holidays begins tomorrow in Nigeria, and that eased tension in the Middle East and drove up oil prices by more than 4% last week. Last week was a very green market for investors in the oil space, but of course if you're buying it, it's more expensive. Now, Israeli Defense Minister Mr. Gallant had said that Israel is ready to handle any scenario that may arise with Iran after Tehran threatened to retaliate for the killing of Iranian generals on April the 1st. Now, the world's top oil exporter, Saudi Arabia, has raised its official selling prices for all crude grades to Asia in May, in line with expectations after heavy oil supply tightened. Another factor is that fire struck an offshore platform operated by Mexico's national oil company, Pemex, on Saturday, killing at least one contractor. And this comes after Pemex requested its trading unit to cancel up to 436,000 barrels a day of crude exports in this month, April. So we see a lot of things squeezing the price or the supply of oil right there. However, Goldman Sachs expects Brent to stay below 100 a barrel in its base case scenario that assumes already solid demand, no further geopolitical hits to oil supply, and that elevated spare capacity will lead OPEC Plus to raise production in the third quarter. Over in the United States now, oil rigs rose by 2 to 508 last week, while gas rigs fell by the same 2 to 110. That's the lowest since January 2022. So we see a whole lot of things going on around oil now. The holiday obviously is one. Let's come back home now and do a continuous follow-up on the Naira. Last week, we saw a lot of appreciation all trading days of the week. For Friday, we saw that in NAFEM, it closed at 1,251 Naira 5 kobo after its gain 0.32%. That's at NAFEM. At NAFEX, it closed at 1,255 Naira 47 kobo after it gained more than almost 2% right there. And we know that analysts, we spoke to Mr. Bismarck Rouhani, and he did say that we should expect that the Naira would settle around 1,250, for some time. But the fair value, according to data available to Financial Derivatives Company, is about 980. But I'm saying we're praying for 700. I'll keep rooting for 700. And one of these days, I might just see that right here on the board. Join me in this. Now to the matter at hand, which of course is that electricity hike in the country. The Federal Competition and Consumer Protection Commission, FCCPC, has asked the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission to mandate distribution companies, that's the DISCOs, to meter all unmetered Band A. That was the conversation we had in Sunrise Daily just before we came here. The Commission made this known in a statement signed by its acting Vice Chairman and Chief Executive Officer, Mr. Adamu Abdullahi. Mr. Abdullahi explains that unless consumers in the Band A and Band B, C, whether they're in Band A, B, C, or D, or E, there's no F, is metered, then the DISCOs should not be allowed to migrate such a consumer to a higher tariff band to avoid any further exploitation. And of course, the right of the consumers comes in here. How do we get paid back? If I don't get paid back at a certain time, what can I do? Who do I reach out to? How effective is the system? But these are conversations that you'll be getting, of course, here on channels, television, or various programs subsequently. Now, we go back to the issue of food security, which is at the top, of every conversation we would have. A hungry man is always an angry man, and even electricity would not even do anything. This is because the World Food Programme says that there's been an increase in the number of food insecure individuals from 8 to 18.6 million Naira. Beg your pardon, I'm going to use your money so much. About 18.6 million people are food insecure. We're food insecure at the end of 2023. Conflicts in the Northeast region displaced 2.2 million people, left another 4.4 people food insecure. Borno, Adamawa, Yobe. And of course, with a hike in inflation we've seen this year, more people have joined this. Now, we know that it's not really new, but how popular is this? Hydroponics is a technique of growing plants using water-based nutrient solution rather than soil, and include an aggregate substrate or growing media such as verticulates, coconut, coir, and a whole lot more. Well, it looks very, would I say, sophisticated. So I wonder how many Nigerians can be involved in this. Well, let's talk to someone who is involved in this in Nigeria and outside Nigeria. We have joining us the Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer of BIC Farms Concern, Mr. Adebowale Onofowora. Mr. Onofowora joins us from Canada. Mr. Onofowora, good morning and thank you for your time.
Good morning. Thank you for having me this morning.
Yeah, so I've had you on the program before, obviously, talking about this hydroponics. Since then till now, how popular has hydroponics farming gotten in Nigeria?
Well, hydroponics is quite popular now. I think in the last 10 years, quite a lot has been done. Today, there are a lot of young people who are involved in hydroponics. if you consider the fact that Nigeria is a young country and we've had this problem with the future of our food, when the average age of Nigerian farmers have been in the 50s, but recently a lot of young people saying what hydroponics can do have developed so much interest in agriculture, and hydroponics today is very popular. I can tell you a lot of young people and even adults now know that there is a type of farming called hydroponics or soilless farming. If you just Google, you will see some of our youth even describing themselves as, I'm a soilless farmer, I'm a slave farmer, and all that. So hydroponics is quite popular. My organization has trained over 40,000 people in hydroponics in 10 years, and I know a lot of other organizations that are doing that. As we talk currently, there's a program going on in Nigeria sponsored by one of the international NGOs, training 12,000 young people in hydroponics over 3 years. So hydroponics is quite popular as of today. Yeah.
So when we look at the pictures, you know, it looks really, will I say, sensitive, like you need a special environment, special atmosphere, you know, and things like that. Isn't that kind of a disadvantage, or who can actually practice this and where?
Well, I don't think it's a disadvantage. The problem has been a lot of ignorance in the field. For example, when you think plants just need soil to grow, and you are forgetting that a time comes when they tell you that that soil is no longer useful. Soil is a house nutrient. Soil is the support for plant. So when plant no longer finds nutrient in soil, what happens to that soil? And that's basically what has been happening. Nigeria have issue with food security, majorly because we kept using this primitive method of growing food. We can only grow food in the rainy season. We can only grow food in areas where there are soil. So areas where you don't have soil or you have issues with your soil, food production becomes an issue. Hydroponics simply says plants need certain things to grow. You need a good soil that is porous, that has good water holding capacity, that has good nutrients and all that. And that's what hydroponics is just about. What we have done is being able to now bring it to bear and to fore that people can see that, oh, crop can be grown properly and sustainably. Let's look at the situation whereby Nigeria have 12 months of sunlight, 12 whole months of sunlight, and are fully insecure. It's really sad. It's not something that is palatable to the hearing. You have times where you have winter month for 7 whole months of the year, and you can only grow within 5 months. Yet these climes are food secured. So why shouldn't Nigeria be? It has been because of our food production practice. So hydroponics now has shown people that we can grow food all year round. Remember, hunger is not seasonal, as my friend will always say. So why should food production be seasonal? So using hydroponics, we have now seen that Nigeria can actually be food secured if we use the technology. And the good part about this is it's not an expensive like that technology. It's something that can be understood, you know, easily and be practicable. What we've done is shown that Nigeria can use technology to grow our food all year round and sustainably. So that's basically what hydroponics is all about. So I don't think growing in a controlled environment is the issue. Look at tomato. Why does tomato grow more in the northern part than in the southern part? It's just the simple science of tomatoes. Tomato is a summer crop. That plant does not like water touching its leaves. When water touches leaves and it doesn't dry on time, it increases possibility of fungal infection and all this. So when you grow it in a controlled environment, in places where, okay, you have a higher rainfall and all that, tomato get to do better. Tomato have issues in the soil, maybe because of nematode, bacterial wilt and all that. So you use an inert substrate, something that, okay, this one is plain, but you give it the nutrient that it needs. So these are sciences that, you know, help us to say food can be grown all year round. if we know what we need to give to food. And that's just what it's all about. So hydroponics is something that can be done. It shouldn't be that complex. And we don't need to see it as a complex technology. Everybody, anywhere around, can do hydroponics, even in your backyard. And I think I should also bring this picture to bear. On 1 acre of hydroponics, you can achieve what you need 50 acres of open field to grow. So how many people have access to 50 acres of land? You can now say, oh, if I have 1 plot of land, I can grow the amount of food that somebody that has 15 plot of land is growing or more. So these are some of the things that hydroponics helps you to achieve, and with limited space. Yeah. So tell me, I am an individual, because I feel challenged now. I'm an individual, and I want to, maybe even if it's just for, because I see green pepper, there are some of those pictures that you shared with us. I really love green pepper, and I want to grow it. What do I do? How do I start? What do I need? Well, basically, it starts with learning. I'm a businessman. I tell people, first learn, then hand. Now, for example, green pepper, what does this crop need to grow? What does tomato need to grow? These are things we can understand and give to the plant. Water is a combination of 2 elements, hydrogen and oxygen. Now, in nature, we say elements don't exist alone. They exist as compound. They come together. So what are the things that each plant needs to grow? Let's give it to the plant using every available or whatever system you have. There's something we do in my organization. We call it beginner's mindset. When you look at a material and you ask, what can I do with this material? The moment the answer comes to mind, then you start to grow. Now, bell pepper is an exotic vegetable that has a good, that commands a good pricing. It wasn't what we started with, but the reason we started focusing on bell pepper, tomato is because, yes, you get to spend some amount of money to set up your hydroponic system, your greenhouse, your substrate, and all that. Then why will I grow a crop that I cannot sell at an advantage? Before now, bell peppers, beef tomatoes, cherry tomatoes are being imported into Nigeria. Now, these crops can now be grown easily. So when you know, okay, I can grow a crop that will command a commensurate amount of my investment over a short period of time, then you go for it. You can grow pepper in your backyard with a small space for your personal consumption. If you are now saying, okay, I want to sell, or make money from bell pepper, then can I increase my growing space? Gradually, you can do that. But majorly start by learning, understand the crop, get used to it. When you have done that, you can now tell yourself, okay, I want to make money from this production. And then you move to the next level. So bell pepper, tomato, lettuce, as you can see, and all that, all of them have a know-how. The moment you understand the gap and you put it into it, you can produce this crop. I'll also be willing to share the know-how with you if you are interested. I appreciate that. But what about government's policies, laws, regulation, and all of that in practicing this hydroponics? Well, let me bring this to bear. I remember at the initial stage when we started this technology, I went to one of the University of Agriculture in Nigeria, and I was sharing with the professor there that this is technology for the future, and even now, young people get attracted to this type of farming because it's attractive. They no longer see farming as being punitive. And he says, Nigeria has the largest arable land in Africa. We have not used all our land. And you are talking soilless. And I said, how can we use all our land when the average population of our country don't even feel interested in farming? Let's attract them first. 2 years after, I saw him at one of my trainings, and it was like, you were right. This type of farming has attracted a lot of young people. So I said, now that we have gotten their attention, let's move to the next thing. Government support had not been there at the initial stage, but over the time, I think a number of few things are coming. But there is this problem of policy somersault. Sometimes in 2017, there was a policy that says when you import greenhouses into Nigeria, it comes at zero duty. By 2020, somebody changed that. We had a meeting with the director of horticulture sometimes last year with the horticulture, and it was like, he was also shocked to see that somebody had changed that singular policy that you now have to pay. Now, in many climes, go to China, go to some other countries, farmers are supported by simple policy subsidies like that. You import greenhouses, you don't get to pay duty for it so that it comes cheap and people can settle. And these are some of the ways I think government can support. Look at fertilizers. Sometimes in 2017, 2018, there's a particular fertilizer called calcium nitrate. These are soluble fertilizers. They are high-end fertilizers. They are what we use in the greenhouse. A bag of calcium nitrate as of 2018 was 8,005. As I talk to you now, that same bag of calcium nitrate is 55, 60,000. A bag of potassium nitrate in 2018 was 9,000 naira. Today is 85,000. Now, what led to this? There was a change in the policy that all these fertilizers are being used for bomb manufacturing and all that. Some said fertilizers are being manufactured in Nigeria. But these are not the type of fertilizers you manufacture in Nigeria. There's a principle we called zero-sum phase in agriculture, law of minimum. What affects plants? It's not the unavailability of your major nutrient. It's unavailability of what we call micronutrients. A micronutrient is not being produced in Nigeria. Now, when you now tag fertilizers that have micronutrients as being dangerous, when they were imported before, the NSA gives end user certificate and all that. But all that were withdrawn. So these fertilizers are now being smuggled into Nigeria. And farmers have to pay 10, 15 times the price or the cost of this fertilizer. Yet the price of food are not really appreciated across what you spend on it. In 2018, a kilo of hydroponics tomato was 500 naira. A kilo. Today, it's still 500 naira, except when we have scarcity, that it shoots up. Yeah, the cost of producing it over the last 5 years has increased by 500%. So I think government can do more if understanding is put in place. If they get to know that, oh, this type of farming is necessary if we will be food secure. Let me give you this simple instance. In certain countries that has a small province with 1,500,000 people, exported $6 billion worth of food in 2022. Nigeria exported agro-produce around $2 billion. That's in 2022. Now compare. Now this time, just 5 months of growing period. How come they export more food than us? Technology. So we need to understand that technology is an enabler and government really need to support it with so many things. All right. That's what I would say about that.
All right, Mr. Nofora, thank you so much. We can feel your passion. And obviously, food is a major necessity, and there are ways that we could boost the production in the midst of the insecurity challenges and lack of mechanized farming or lack of adequate mechanized farming that we have in Nigeria. I guess it should be embraced. Perhaps it is hydroponic that is the answer. The Managing Director, Chief Executive Officer of BIC Farms Concept, Mr. Adeboale Nofowora, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
All right, now let's head to the market and see how the market fared last week. Yes, for the NGX, it was not a very positive one for the NGX. It was down lost at the close of trade on Friday, 2.15%. Market cap was down 1.14%. Activity, we see that 11 stocks were traded. Oh, beg your pardon, that's for the NERC market. No wonder it's different from what we have here. So for the NGX, it was down 1.08%. And then, of course, remember, we lost this, I think that was on Thursday. We lost the 104,000, sustained at equity, still at 58 trillion naira. And then we can also look at the fixed income market for last week. We had some auctions last week. We saw the second quarter calendar and what's going on there. Let's have Caleb Alimi give us a bigger view of what happened and perhaps what we could expect. Hi, Caleb. Good morning. Hi, Caleb. Can you hear me? So this is for the, while we wait for Caleb, this is for the currency, the trade of currency last week. Total weekly trade was $918.15 million. Forwards, we see there had a week-on-week change of almost 100% for the forwards at the close of trade. Derivatives, almost the same also for that market. But week-on-week total change was down 52.88%. Daily average, we see FX spots 235.79 forwards and derivatives right there. If we could have the fixed income market for last week, I know we had a couple of auctions at the close of trade right there. And we have Caleb now, I believe. Hi, Caleb. Good morning. Hello, Caleb, can you hear me? All right, I think Caleb cannot hear me. We do have a bit of, drop there, right there. So it was a busy week for the FX market last week. We did see auctions and we saw a lot of movements right there with the gain on the Naira and the increase in yields. We see more investors, going that way. Perhaps that's why we see the NGX dropping. But we will follow up on that story. That's for the market, obviously, this week. We just have this week is so short. We're going to have only 3 trading days because tomorrow, Tuesday, and Wednesday are both public holidays. Of course, the market would not operate. But at 1 p.m., we're going to have Business Incorporated. Ladi will be here, and obviously, Anyeti Edet will take us into the market to see what happened, the auctions, and we've already started operating the second quarter calendar for the markets. If you want the government to owe you, you can look into that calendar and see perhaps you can get some money from the government right there. But this is the much we can take. Don't forget to join Ladi Williams, Anyeti Edet, and the other crew by 1 p.m. for Business Incorporated. For more on the markets and a whole lot more, I'm John Mekwa, back now to the Sunrise Daily Studios.
More nutritious meals, more veggies, but we want it tasty and easy too. Knorr Cubes, that's the secret. Made with real ingredients like chicken, parsley, and garlic, and enriched with iron, so your meals are better for you and more delicious too. That's the cocoa. Let's give it some accolades. Change your world by changing what's on your plate.
With Glovo, you order anything you want, and when you receive it, you celebrate with your whole body. Because when that tasty grilled chicken is here, the weekend starts. The ingredients for your favorite recipe, just in time. And when the cake arrives, the party is on. Because receiving anything on Glovo deserves a dance. Download the app, order anything you want, and track it minute by minute until it arrives. Glovo, order anything, we deliver in minutes.
Yeah, welcome back. So Mr. George Itomi joins us now. He is the founding partner for George Itomi and Partners. Good morning, and thank you for joining us on the program today.
Good morning, Chamberlain.
Yes, let's talk about this matter again. It's an unending one and a thorny one for a lot of people who are concerned because they think that they've not seen enough transparency, a question about whose word do we believe? Now they've got to cough out this money ×3. They're not sure if there are just several things going on about it. I mean, I know you had a stint or two on this particular matter. So tell us about how the kind of feedback that you have had about this matter.
Well, the feedback has been mixed, but predominantly on the side of doubts on the part of the populace. And it's understandable because a lot of these tariff movements have always been based on the assumption if you pay cost-reflective tariffs, you will get this. It's been the chicken and egg situation we've always talked about, which comes before. Do you have improved services before you raise the tariffs, or do you raise the tariffs in the hope that services will improve? Now, but I can situate the problem right from the very beginning, and that was at the onset of the privatization. It was always understood that there was a need for the tariffs to reflect the cost. And the idea behind that was that whilst investors begin to put their money in the business, they would have a clear sight of recovery of these investments, and that would come in the form of cost-reflective tariffs. But what we have seen has been the interference of policy and in many cases politics in this economic assumption. And we saw, for example, in 2014, when after the privatization had occurred, leading to the elections, tariffs were reduced instead of allowing market forces to determine it. That knocked off all the assumptions anyone could ever have had. And from that point until COVID, nearly 6 years after, even though the MITO was generally adjusted, but it was never implemented. And so when COVID hit us and there was no money in the kitty to sustain the subsidy, the regulator was simply told, okay, let's go of the tariffs. And those tariffs, if you recall, doubled. And the impact was an immediate tariff shock amongst the consuming public. I would have thought that we would have learned a lesson from that. Because no matter how well you plan, if your cost has to double without you being prepared for it, it's going to create a shock in your system. And what we saw across board was massive meter bypass. So the revenue that was projected to have come in from these increased tariffs never ever came in. Instead, you had so many disagreements and the blame game trading that was going on. Now, fast forward to 2021, we then did what they call a massive reset of the electricity supply industry. And again, it was reaffirmed that you must allow the tariffs to reflect economic realities, because MITO is projected on issues to do with your forex movements, inflation, cost of living, just like any other commodity. So it makes no sense to hold down one sector if other sectors are allowed, as it were, to allow market forces to determine their cost. And if you're going to do so, then the person responsible for that policy is best placed to carry the burden. And that's why the federal government had been carrying the subsidy burden. But we always knew that day would come when it would not happen. And had they allowed the market reset to continue, we would have seen a situation where there would be tariff increases, but they would have been segmented. And that would likely have allowed the populace, one, to prepare and adjust their consumption habits. Secondly, to hold the distribution companies to their performance targets. Now, what we have now seen is that tariffs were again held, elections came, tariffs were held down, and it's been accumulating. We've known for the past 3 or 4 tariff cycles that the regulator had actually adjusted MITO, but it simply couldn't be implemented. Now, the government has come to the reality that $250 billion a month was unsustainable. And what do? They let go again. But this time, they've done it selectively. They've looked at what I believe they consider the least line of resistance, which is those they classify as Band A customers, on the assumption that they are the well-to-do ones, they're unlikely to hit the streets, they're unlikely to do so many things. So transfer this government burden on them. And I think that is a cause for concern. It shows poor planning and even worse, poor implementation. Because no matter how rich you are, if you are paying 200,000, 300,000 naira a month for electricity, and that is suddenly tripled or quadrupled, I mean, I don't know how prepared you can be to meet that expense. So, secondly,
yes, please go ahead.
I was just going to say then, don't forget, a lot of Band A customers are the industrial customers. It was very simple for them. They will just pass the cost on to the very populace you think you are protecting. So cost of goods, cost of services, all those will be factored in. It will lead to slower growth in the economy, if not in so many cases, job losses. And again, policy has been a major problem. Yes, we recognize that gas constraints and ability to pay gas producers is the original cause, but tackling it by simply transferring the burden to just a few segments of the population, I don't think it's the right policy.
You know, and these are some of the issues that many have tried to raise. And, you know, but the thing about this too is this. Yes, they've gone ahead and then, let me use the word, targeted Band A, so to speak, thinking that it will not affect all the other people. But yes, you also highlighted it will eventually be transferred to all of the others. So even those who are being sustained by Band A, several other citizens, the indigents, the businesses, everybody will feel this at the end of the day. So speak to this. From what we understand, from what you're saying now, is that now this will not be the last of this kind of increase, by the way, because there will be another time where they have to revisit this matter. So, and if that happens, do you get the sense that they've put in place all those mechanisms to ensure that they do that reset? Because they keep telling us about MITO. Who knows, for 2025, they'll come back to the same matter.
Well, the thing is that under the new Electricity Act, the MITO review is now going to be monthly. Before it was once in every 6 months. In the UK, it's once in every 3 months. And that is because it needs to keep in touch with the realities of the market, how your currency movement goes, how your inflation goes. That's the idea, which is okay, because you know yourself. Whatever you buy in the market today may not necessarily be what you buy in a month's time. So the idea is to allow electricity to keep in step with market reality. So yes, you're right. This is not going to be the last increase. If we keep with what MITO says, maybe in another month we should expect something. Wow. But like I said, it is done on the assumption that the electricity industry will keep to its own end of the bargain, i.e., provide. If you say Band A customers will get 20 hours, this MITO has been implemented instantly. But most of the complaints I receive is that we've not seen 20 hours a day. Now, it will take a little bit of time for the gas producers to have the confidence that, one, their backlog of payments will be met, and two, you can keep up with the payments of the current bills. And don't forget, you are expected that it is from the tariffs that are charged that payments will be made down the value chain. There's a waterfall. The discos keep only about 20% of their earnings, and then everything else goes down ultimately until it gets to the gas producers. The gas producers still need to be confident that at the end of the day, they will get the cost of their own gas, because they sell the gas to the generating companies. So it's a confidence game. Now, so if they don't get it, if somewhere along the line something goes wrong, they will still give you gas on what I call a best endeavor basis. You cannot hold them contractually to give you this gas. And we're looking at a contract-based market along the value chain, but it does not affect the gas producers. So the question would then be, why are we sitting on so much abundance of gas and we're having this issue? That is a federal government policy. It's a policy, it's a question you must ask and answer. And that is true. Why that? Gas is priced in dollars, it's benchmarked. Yes, we know all the expenditure, everything is in dollars, but it's benchmarked against the dollar. But we have also differentials. Gas for export is actually offered cheaper than gas for domestic use. The gas to power infrastructure hardly exists because when we gave out all our gas reserves, we never thought about domestic use. We never thought about power. The NNPC on many of these joint ventures owns a large portion of that gas, and it's all been contracted mainly for export. So why can't we as a nation decide today that a certain portion of that gas must be used for domestic use? Invite worthy investors and then give them whatever incentive you need to give to them so that a certain portion of what we sit on can go towards the domestic market, because you also must look at the multiplier effect. If we get gas at a reasonable cost, because 70% of your electricity tariff is gas, that tariff will be moderated. And if it's moderated, it will lead to growth. If it leads to growth, Nigerians will earn more. Income capacity will increase. There will be vibrancy overall. So it's not just targeting one end of the market, and then you forget that the greatest benefit for any economic growth is growing your people. This is the problem I have with the policy. Right now, everybody, no matter how rich you are groaning. There are some are thinking about job cuts. Some are thinking about don't put on this, don't put on that. We even have suggestions that you should take off your deep freezer. It's low quality life. And how do you expect performance from individuals under these circumstances? So we must really, really, really go back. And then don't forget, consumption habits at the government circles is still not what we expect it to be. The sacrifice must be all round. We still see the massive number of convoys. We hear the MDAs are still not meeting up with their debts. So the example is not being set for us to say, okay, this sacrifice is on the part of everybody. So it's a conversation we must all have. We are all patriots. We want this country to grow, but we can't punish a few for the for years of malfeasance.
Well, excuse me. All you have said, Mr. Tomi, is that this is something that has now accumulated and ought to have been done periodically. Government has held back, and as such, it would seem that right now they're visiting all the years of troubles on a particular class. And you said this is not how you would have, wanted to see this done. Now you have proposed something which is more,
correct.
Which is more. You propose something which looks more long term, which is addressing it at the root problem, from the supply of gas. But I'm wondering, for the short term, if governments were to say, spread this all around, is this something that, would have worked? Because clearly we need money to be able to pay the gas suppliers to be able to fire up the plants. Everybody admits that for the past couple of months in this country, it's been very difficult to get any electricity. Electricity supply has been really, really poor, and that's because of what has been happening to gas suppliers. So in the short term, what would you have proposed? Would you have said, let everybody along all the different bands carry it, even though some people are saying that, look, even this banding thingy is very discriminatory. They think that this is against the law and that the processes have not been followed.
Yes, I agree with you. But again, you see, risk allocation in this sector must be squarely on the shoulders of those who are best placed to carry this risk. If over the years, through policy instruments, you say that tariff adjustments which have been prepared by the regulator should not be implemented, if you say so, then you carry that risk. If you want others to bear the risk, then it must be in a manner that is not discriminatory. The Constitution forbids that. So you have to have that sit down. Now, I don't know if a quadrupling of the tariff has suddenly meant that all the subsidy has gone, or whether the government is still going to bear some. But the problem about applying it in the way you are doing it, it's almost as if you're asking somebody to run a race and the strong should carry the weak. But if you weaken the strong themselves, everybody comes crashing. And that's the worry I have about it. So to a direct answer, I think this should be spread across the board. The government cannot totally shy away from it. They must carry it. And then we must have a sit down and see how this can be marshaled across. Everybody needs to survive. Like I said, years of profligacy, the chicken is coming home to roost. But again, don't, as they say, kill the goose that lays the golden egg.
Well, Mr. Rotimi, one of the questions that I want to naturally ask is, to begin with the legislation. We had Dr. Oni earlier saying there's some form of ambiguity, even in the law, that is being operated now. For instance, one of the things that Dr. Oni said, being an energy law and policy expert, saying that the law requires that the discos should make sure that they get 20 hours per day. That's for the band A. So what happens for the 6 days that they don't get up to 20 hours, or maybe you don't even get anything at all? But on the 6th day, they fix it, and then every 6 days like that, since the law says 7 days. So how do you think there's some kind of amendment, or do you see ambiguity? Do you see transparency? What are the issues that you think people are having, beyond the issues that you have discussed? What are the issues people are having about this particular thing? Because even the NERC man that we spoke to earlier said, he admitted that there are some issues with their communication.
Yeah, I mean, you have to see how you can average it out, because the law anticipates that it should average out. And the issue here is that, okay, if I don't give you power over a 7-day period for 20 hours averagely per day, and then suddenly I fix it, and then you now get power, and on the average, you get I meet the threshold set by the regulator. Technically speaking, I'm not in breach, but in practical terms, it doesn't help anybody, because the disruption is inimical to growth, is inimical to your well-being, and in some cases, as we see, it actually in some cases damages your appliances. So how do you then mitigate that? How do you then make adjustments for that? So yes, the law is ambiguous, and even more so in its application, it needs to be a bit more practical.
Well, that's not all a number of people are looking at. One of the other issues that's gone on so far until now includes the comment from the FCCPC saying that unless the Band A customers are metered, there are more questions than resolutions so far in that regard. And we've been talking about metering forever, so to speak. So do you see an issue coming from that? Because if unmetered people on Band A get those indiscriminate billing that they usually get, what's likely to happen? How do people seek redress when and where they feel that they've been hard done by?
Well, the regulator is the go-to person for redress in any dispute around this industry. And in fairness to them, they've come down hard on discos with regard to these issues of estimated billings. That's what you're referring to. And yes, metering is a sine qua non to create trust between the supplier and the receiver of the goods. So metering is a must, especially now that you say Band A customers should essentially cross-subsidize the sector. So there must be that certainty. Like I said, it's the meter that creates that trust. Now, the metering is actively going on, but I can tell you there's a problem today because, as you know, metering has been taken off the purview of the DISCOs and been given to meter asset providers, and there are various programs for it, even though they all interface. The issue here is that even the meter asset providers are refusing to give out meters because they have disagreements with the regulator over the cost of the meters. Because they say they must be allowed to increase the cost, the advertised cost, because it's all regulated. Because if they sell at that cost, they won't be able to replace the meters for future use. Again, seeing the same problem we're discussing. Everybody is hit by this cycle of inflation. And this is largely slowed down metering. I've had more complaints from friends about my meter is spoiled. I've applied for a meter for a long time. The reason is largely what I just described. And I hope at some time the regulator will agree on the price, because it's getting to the point where some people are saying, look, I don't care for the price, just give me the meter, so that at least I know what I'm consuming. And they have a point, the argument is very strong. And it's even stronger today that you've quadrupled tariffs. People must be sure of what they consume. So you can imagine if crazy billing comes with at this time. You can imagine if crazy billing had been happening in the past and people have been upset. You can imagine if you are not metered now, you are band A, and then you get a crazy bill. You just go bananas. So metering is a must.
You know, Mr. Rotimi, perhaps one of the questions to even try to resolve is why the urgency? Because it seems like there are so many issues on this particular policy of government which has already been activated, by the way. There are questions around who bears the costs of rejected loads from DISCOs. We've heard from experts that say if the load is too much, there will be a grid collapse. If the load is too little, is not enough, there's going to be grid collapse. Now, someone rejects load, as the DISCOs reject load from the GENCOs, and guess what? It's the customers, the consumers that bear the cost. Another issue is that of the supply. How is this supply measured? What's the assurance that what is being supplied, or what's being claimed by the DISCOs is exactly what is being supplied? Is there a measuring parameter from by the NERC or even at the DISCOs level? There's another issue of whether or not this will even end grid collapse. So it raises the question of what's the urgency? Do you see a reason, any moral, financial, commercial, whatever justification for this sudden implementation that didn't even give people any opportunity to prepare?
Well, poor planning. I said that before. Poor planning. This cycle started 11 years ago, and politics always interferes with good economics. When the new government came in, I think it was the Buhari administration, they paid, if you ask me, little attention to the fact that the sector had been privatized and went on as though it were not. So it led to a lot of friction between the new actors on the scene and the government. There were myriads of cases in court. If you remember, several of those cases, it interfered with progress. And for an industry that requires constant injection of new money, it was a discouragement for investors to come into the sector. And that is what the problem you have. Very little new money is coming in, and because of the policy inconsistency. Then when suddenly it was realized that that was not the way to go, there were talks about what I said, the market reset. The reset took a long time. A lot of those cases were, in fact, most of the cases, if not all, were withdrawn from court. I was personally involved in those to create the atmosphere. Then the issue of the MDAs, debt owed by the MDAs to the market were discussed, and mechanisms were put in place to fix it. I'm surprised nearly 1 year plus after, we're still talking about MDA debts. The DISCOs were accused at that time of not furnishing remitting all the funds they were collecting to the market. They created an escrow arrangement which had a waterfall, and the discos are almost second or third from the bottom of the waterfall. You pay the central bank, you pay the market, you pay everybody, so that way you know that nobody is holding onto your funds. So at times, when discos are accused of not remitting, this is what's going on. So, and what happened when that was implemented was that quite a number of discos could not meet with what I call their minimum remittance obligations because they had no control of their funds. And as you can see, about 5 or 6 of those discos have now been taken over and new owners have come in. Now, once you cannot hold anybody to any obligation, the whole idea is that from gas to distribution, you should be able to enforce the obligations contractually. But as I've told you, from the gas end, the gas people are saying, sorry, we cannot be part of this. We'll give gas whenever we feel we can give it to you. And talking about grid collapse, once the grid is underloaded, it has a disturbance. If it's overloaded, it has a disturbance. And in any case, its optimum capacity working at the best is not more than 5,000 megawatts. But lately, we've been seeing only 3,000 to 4,000 megawatts. Load rejection. Discos are telling you, I will not take load if I have to meet 100% of my market obligations. And usually it's the TCN that takes the load to balance the grid to various places. And the DISCO says, please, I need more power in Ikoyi or VI because I know I can get my revenue to meet with my minimum remittance obligations. TCN says, no, we have to balance the grid, so I must give you power somewhere, and I know I'm not going to recover the money. I'll reject the load. So that's what leads to load rejection. So it's so many forces are at play. You are dealing with economic reality as against policies that are trying to accommodate the feelings of people who have enjoyed this commodity as a social service.
All right. So we do thank you very much indeed for your perspectives this morning. Mr. George Rotimi is a founding partner, George Rotimi and Partners.
Thank you.
All right, we do have an email from Dixon Eka about this. He says, look, is President Tinubu elected just to remove subsidy on all items in Nigeria and to impoverish the people? While Nigerians are yet to recover from the shocks of fuel subsidy removal and floating of Naira, with many rich people now going into multi-dimensional poverty, he's come up with yet another subsidy removal on an unexisting electricity. 11 months in power, he says, no major infrastructural or legacy projects has been initiated. Well, by the president, Mr. Adelabu has never for once mentioned any attempt he's making to improve electricity. His announcement has been on electricity price hike only, and then he goes on to say, look, I recharged for 20,000 Naira and the unit finished in less than 3 days, and he goes on and on. Well, Dixon, we do hear you, but okay, so...
That hurts. That hurts, certainly.
I know. It's...
that hurts, and you can see his pain.
Feedback in terms of how the policies government is taking is coming across to the people. Yes, they may say we're doing a thing or two, but this is just how some persons perceive whatever it is that you're doing. Okay, Ayo, you got any update for us? Oh, no, look at the time.
We're totally out of time, Chamberlain.
Okay, all right then. So there you go. That wraps it up then. We look at some of the issues we've got for you this morning. Well, not to worry. We will be back here again tomorrow. Thank you very much indeed for watching. I'm Chamberlain Uso.
Well, cheers to another weekend coming up right there tomorrow, and next tomorrow is a public holiday. We wish you, hope you have a great one, regardless of what the electricity tariff is saying. I'm Maokwe Ogun Yusuf, and I think I still owes you the location of where he was showing you in terms of the skyline of Lagos
and the breaking news too.
Ayo.
Well, you guys, you already gave me the idea that, well, since we don't have enough time, I guess I'm going to keep that until some other time. Where is that part of Lagos? You can scroll back to the beginning to find out where it is. In the meantime, have a wonderful rest of your day. And Barka da Sallah. I'm Ayo Makinde.